So just to give you other crazy examples that I just thought about, what is quite interesting in terms of the American court system is that the better looking you are, the more likely it is that you will be fined. The better looking you are, the less likely it is that you will be found guilty of crimes, which is an insane correlation. I mean, when we think of what society and what the court system is supposed to do, which is really, really an indication of what America is. I mean, other perceived relationships in America, the more you spend on your election, the greater the likelihood of you being elected, unless you're a woman. And we have to be honest about that. So this is fairly important, and you want to use this table. There are tables that refine them a little bit more. So if you look in Bradley's, he did the one on the electric vehicles and perceived value for electric vehicles. There are other ones that refine these relationships better. So just to do it in reverse order, if you get between 0.8 and 0.1 in terms of the relationship between your dependent and independent variable, the chance is that there's a strong positive correlation. So if there is, let's look at the relationship of perceived value of electric vehicles and your likelihood of buying them, there will be a positive relationship. So you also want to show in terms of those correlations whether you've proved your alternative hypothesis or whether you have in fact not proved your alternative hypothesis, and that the reality is that your null hypothesis had better described the relationship between the two variables. So the first thing you do is you get your mean, your average, then you compare those averages, and then you'll be able to see in terms of those relationships. I will provide a video on how to do it so that you guys can play with that. This is fairly important in terms of your argumentation, and a lot of your argumentation will depend on that particular relationship. Okay. So just to quickly jump here to just show you examples of this, and I should have maybe a little bit more prepared, but that would not be me. Okay, and I'm going to use Bradley's one. And remember, these are heck of important when you actually do your write-up, is to look at these other examples and learn from those examples. I think for me, this is very important, and this is a wonderful example of quantitative research. So you'll see in terms of him unpacking what his averages were. Tashila, you were typing. I think you've stopped typing. So what he's done in unpacking his findings is he first of all looked at the demographics, and again, a wonderful example to make your research visually appealing. So you can see he's depicted the average there of the ages, etc., different ethnicities. He told us where the respondents came from, and then he went to his independent variable, the potential technology acceptance of alternative energy vehicles. Okay. And you'll see he unpacked each of the questions. He told us what the mean was in terms of each of those respondents and their questions. He gave us the standard deviation to see how far they varied from the mean, and they also gave us the median and the mode. And then he looked at the perceived usefulness, and he again looked at that. So that would have been his independent variable. When he went then, and you'll see he unpacked what each of those meant to show whether those respondents had agreed. Oh, absolutely. I thought I have shared Brad's example with you guys. I'm certain that that Brad's example has been shared, but I'll make sure that it is there. To just say though, I have permission to use these, so don't worry about copy and things like that. It really is. And for me, this is what makes quantitative research pop. In qualitative research, thanks so much, Kira, for that. In qualitative research, we don't get these opportunities. So then he showed us what each of those questions looked like in terms of the respondents. He discussed each of those, and he discussed each of those. Okay. And then from there, and you can see he'd gone through each element. And then it was literally to look at technology acceptance, and I might have messed up when I spoke earlier. And then he also looked at um, perceived value. My apologies. So technology acceptance, the independent variable, perceived value, the dependent variable. And then it's simply to do comparisons. And we'll provide a recording, we'll provide you something on how to do this. And then it's simply just the assessment. So here is his depiction of the obvious, the dependent and the independent variable. So the independent variable there, the dependent variable there, and you'll see that he has given us a wonderful distribution and done the calculation on that distribution. For me, that becomes important. And this is what I wanted to get to. You're most welcome to use this. He's used a different table to show how strong the correlation was. Now, it obviously will depend on your numbers and figures what the correlation is. But you can see that there is a significant amount of unpacking, interpreting, and discussion around these. But yeah, so Brad's is definitely there, 100%. The, the other one that is there in terms of this is now, remember, Nicole is a different kettle of fish. She did a postgraduate diploma and she did the year-long research. But this is one of the best examples of interpreting stats. Okay. And this was from somebody who had never done quantitative research. Having said that, can I just say, she is an industrial psychologist, so she already had her master's and then came back to get some business examples. She looked at the relationship of between organizational citizenship behavior, that wanting to do and go beyond, above and beyond in terms of your work. And then she looked at the attitude towards food waste. Again, giving us the mean, the standard deviation, wonderfully unpacking these. But for me, the real value is when she gets to a correlation and her unpacking of that. Again, a scatter plot and then the discussion. The discussion is very personal, guys, but it has to be based on factual relationship type evidence. I would have definitely shared Nicole's with you as well. I don't know. This is not too bad. This is a very, very simple one. I think the person got 80% for it. And you can see there. So he looked at the relationship between authentic leadership, employee satisfaction within remote work. So this was at the height of COVID. So just we don't want to know about COVID anymore. And then he spoke about his data analysis. Again, very simple unpacking of it. I'm not a big fan of pie charts, but you can see again the age category there and what fit in, and then obviously the idea of the different relationships again depicted there. So what this allows us to do is to be visually very, very appealing. And that's what's nice about this. So in terms of probabilities, I think first of all, look at your normal distribution, 0 to 1, and then the higher the probability, the more likely it is that you are going to arrive at this particular outcome. I Yeah, and then just you can also look at your distribution. You're most welcome to show the distribution of your scores. As I said, yeah, this is an example of throwing two dice and how likely you are to throw different things. But for me, it's what your IQ curve looks like. Okay. I don't want to go beyond that, guys, because I think, yeah, no, sorry, I have to go beyond that. Okay, so there's your normal distribution, your traditional bell curve. Those of you that have done some form of psychology will remember that the relationship in this is the traditional curve, including IQ. So this would be 100, this would be 150 to 180, and then this would be a lot lower. And then, yeah, you can see in terms of testing your hypothesis. So remember, you would have said in your hypothesis, there is a relationship, there is no relationship. And in your hypothesis, it would depend on how strong your correlation was. Did you prove your alternative hypothesis? Did you? Okay. Okay, I will make sure that it's there. Guys, I will make sure that it's there. Okay, I will make sure that it's there. Okay, and you can see some of the other bits here in terms of hypothesis testing. So it will depend on how strong it is or how weak it is, and then you will indicate which hypothesis we have accepted. I'm concerned that that's not there, so that is a worry for me, and I'll have to see why that's not there. Damn it. Okay, guys, I'm going to call it quits there. My apologies. Feeling a little bit under the weather.